Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
We do know that the Iranians are continuing to take heavy incoming fire from the Israelis, who launched new strikes against IRGC headquarters and also besieged leadership around the capital of Tehran. They're looking to put as much pressure on the regime as possible. And over the weekend, the Israelis launched a series of strikes against Iran's oil infrastructure on the outskirts of Tehran, hitting 4 separate storage facilities. You could see black smoke rising from the horizon in Tehran. People on the ground even describing it as raining oil, as these droplets that were taken up into the air came back down from the atmosphere. Now, the Iranians are continuing their missile launches against Israel and Gulf countries over the weekend. We saw as some of those missiles soared through the skies of Tel Aviv, causing significant damage on the ground below as cluster munitions were used. A number of shrapnel injuries were reported at more than a dozen different locations. And as the Israelis continue to look east to this incoming fire, they're also looking north to Lebanon, where new strikes took place against the Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah in the southern Beirut neighborhood of Dakhya. Today, the Israelis going after the financial institutions that are supporting this proxy that continues to launch rockets and drones over the border into northern Israel. So a lot of updates here, and the Israelis say 2 of their soldiers were killed this weekend in southern Lebanon.
My friends, that report was filed earlier this morning by Trey Yingst, who is perhaps the best war reporter that any United States network has. And then, as I told you, there were incoming missiles just moments ago that were intercepted in Tel Aviv. We now know that it was Hezbollah in Lebanon which fired those missiles into Tel Aviv. What does this mean for someone who's trying to get home and can't? I want to welcome our good friend, my good friend, Jonathan Feldstein is joining us, president of the Genesis 123 Foundation, who's here in the United States on a mission of peace. And his family has skin in the game, my friends, right now. And as Jonathan, I was just telling the audience before you signed on that you've talked many, many times about how Americans can't understand Israelis living under the constant threat of war every day of their lives. And that's something that we really couldn't, we really could never conceive. But Israelis live like that every day, don't they, my friend?
Yeah, Jake, first of all, good morning. Good morning, all your listeners.
Good morning.
From I'm stranded currently in a hotel in Atlanta, looking to fill my time for the next, hopefully, only 2 weeks. But you're right, Americans can understand, and that's a blessing, because for all the reasons, since 25 years when America was attacked by the other Islamic terrorists, taking down the World Trade Centers and the Pentagon. American, and that was only in very isolated areas. Americans don't understand the reality of war, the reality of the consequences of war, and what that means to live in it. And that's a blessing. Amazing to be able to live like that, but it doesn't and can't preclude people from taking the interest, and I would even say responsibility, for knowing what that's in fact like. And I'm glad you pointed out, because it adds a whole big dimension, the fact that the most recent air raid sirens sounded across Israel were because of rockets and missiles from Lebanon, not from
Iran.
And by the way, apologies in advance. I'm now, during the war, when I'm doing these interviews, leaving my phone on next to the computer. So if there are air raid sirens, you'll hear them live, the audio.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you, Jonathan. Your cell phone is still getting those same air raid messages that the Israeli government is sending out. So your stress level would be perhaps the same as it was if you were home right now, because you're getting, you would be heading for a bomb shelter, right? Or perhaps it's not, but still you're getting those warnings.
I would say that my stress level is even higher now, because I'm not with my family. I'm not doing my job to be as protecting of them or concerning, and knowing I can check, of course, but overnight at 4:00 in the morning Eastern, my family, 4:22 to be precise, my family was all sent to the bomb shelters in the middle of the night. So it's adding my stress level. And I'll tell you something funny.
Yeah.
For some reason, when I checked into this hotel, I don't know how many hotels I've stayed at on this trip. I've been here in the States for a month, and as I said, I'm stranded looking to fill my time the next 2 weeks. When I checked into this hotel yesterday, I had this eerie feeling of, okay, what do I do if there's an air raid siren? Where's the shelter here? And so it's kind of, it was not a conscious thought. It was something that I was aware of, thinking, wow, this is really, I'm several thousand miles away, and this is deep inside my psychological
planning,
DNA.
Emergency planning.
Yeah.
Wow. Jonathan, I did mention to our listeners that you have reservists in your family. I didn't want to say who or where they are, but your family has skin in this game, and I'm wondering, is everything okay?
Oh, everything is okay at the moment, but by okay meaning that people are safe at the moment. That can change daily. When I woke up this morning, I learned the news of 2 more Israelis getting killed and several more injured because of the cluster bombs that the Iranians are using. So all of that adds a factor that we haven't been considering. My youngest daughter and son-in-law live in northern Samaria, and they every time, and it's a lot of times, the missiles from Iran are coming toward Tel Aviv. They're waking up, their sirens are going off, and they've been quite stressed. My oldest son-in-law was called up to his reserve unit a week ago Saturday when this all went down. Mm-hmm. So as soon as Shabbat ended in Israel, he took off, leaving my daughter with their 4 little boys.
Wow.
So physically, everyone's okay, but
mentally,
I don't even know how to explain it. Mentally stressed. I spoke in a church here in Atlanta yesterday and was saying, my daughter and son-in-law are wonderful, amazing parents, and my grandsons are incredible kids, but they're kids. And if they don't know exactly what's going on, they feel the stress. They know their father's not home. They know that that my daughter isn't working and they're not going to their school and preschool, and everything just upsets the norm of life. So that when a child who doesn't have the ability to communicate, "Hey, mom, I'm real frustrated. I'm real scared. I'm angry," whatever it might be, the stress comes out in behavior, which anyone who's a parent can understand. Kids behave like kids, and sometimes even adults behave like kids, and that is straining for the parent who's trying to keep things normal.
Now, during the 12-day war last year, Genesis 123 Foundation had a program where you were buying toys to bring to bomb shelters, right, where the children where they lost their homes and the parents had to go to an emergency shelter, and you had that program to purchase toys for them. Is there any programs like that you're going to continue doing as this war continues into its almost second week?
Right. So the answer is yes. And the answer was my response on October 8th of 2023. Right. We immediately, I told my media person, social media person, to put back up the pop-up on the Genesis123.co website, so that anyone who goes to the website immediately gets a pop-up about the emergency campaign. But what I do, then during 12-day war, many buildings were hit and thousands of Israelis were literally homeless. Right. So that was a logical thing to do. Right. When I don't remember what day, Saturday night or Sunday, when we relaunched the emergency campaign, I don't like everything to be about emergency. I told people what we're doing is getting resources now so we can make the biggest impact with the greatest integrity. And I don't know what those are going to be yet. I don't know what the needs are going to be. Yes, there was a family who was killed in the first week when more than shrapnel, a big chunk of a missile hit their home, and an entire family was killed. Right. I don't know what those needs are. I do know that indoor toys are needed because for the foreseeable future, kids are home and parents need to occupy them. And there's a limit to how much parents might want their kids to have screen time, even though that screen time is also a respite for the parents. So we're figuring it out, what we need to do as reservists are called up. Hot meals are needed. It's still winter. It's still cold in Israel. We're going to figure it out and make the biggest impact. But if we've raised a decent amount so far, but if we only raise $1,000 or $10,000, then we'll do the biggest impact with that. If we raise $100,000, then we're going to do the biggest impact with that.
Jonathan, you have been over here talking and explaining the program that takes place later this year. Is it Olive Branch? Did I get my notes mixed up here? Olive and Branch? Is it what is
Root and Branch?
Root and Branch. I knew I was close. I knew I was close.
Which takes its name from the you'll never forget the verse in Romans 11 that talks about the which is funny for me to talk about as an Orthodox Jew, but it talks about Paul talking about the metaphor of Christians being grafted into the covenant with God through as branches through the root, which is us, the Jewish people. So, and Paul's referring not just to olives and olive trees, but wild olive trees. And yesterday, when I was speaking in a church here in Atlanta with my friend and partner, who I know you know, Marcy Mirizadeh,
yep.
So we are complete partners on this program. And when she was speaking, I jotted down a note. I said, I realized the branches of a tree obviously cannot survive without the root, but there cannot be fruit from a tree without the branches. So we as Jews and Christians need to work together. This weekend we had our first ever Root and Branch Unity Conference here in Atlanta, which was a remarkable success. And as you mentioned, yes, now we're planning for this coming October. We call Root and Branch the world's first ever olive harvest pilgrimage. We're bringing Christians to the land to harvest olives this year. We're going to be going across the Galilee, where Jesus lived and ministered, and harvesting olive trees and from public wild olive trees all across Israel, making oil, selling the oil as different products to bring resources back to Israel that will support Israelis of all backgrounds who have been impacted by this ongoing war. And I will just say, first of all, anyone who wants information, the dates are not up yet, the prices are not up yet, but people can and should be in touch at rootandbranchisrael.com. And I will say, and you know me sincerely, not all your listeners necessarily do, this Root and Branch program is one of the top 3 things that I've had the privilege of doing in the last 40 years. And it's just so remarkable.
Quick question from, let me get to this question here for you. Here it is. From our producer, Wolf. Can Lebanon be finally liberated from Hezbollah? Well, that's certainly the intent, right, Jonathan?
It is the intent, but there was a ceasefire.
That's
there was
right.
A ceasefire that left Hezbollah officially not stationed. What's the word? Located with their weapons north of the Litani River, which is in southern Lebanon. I don't know exactly how far the Litani River is from the Israeli border, but that's sort of a red line through a river, and Hezbollah was just pushed back. But they were left with tens, if not hundreds of thousands of weapons still able to fire. Thank God they were pushed back in September, in the fall of 24,
right?
Because otherwise their missiles, as you mentioned, they're reaching Tel Aviv, but they would be reaching Tel Aviv on a daily basis, sending millions and millions of Israelis all across Israel with much less notice. By the way, that's one of the things that even if my phone is in my pocket and I hear an air raid siren, I can tell you where the missiles are being launched from.
Unbelievable.
Based on that, because I know that when the missiles are launched from Iran, there's a several-minute warning that tells all Israelis, hey, be ready. And in a few minutes, we're going to let you know more precisely who needs to be sheltered. But when they're coming from Lebanon, there's only about a minute or 2 minutes, depending on where you're located, to get shelter.
It's not a lot of time.
No, and there isn't. And you can't, without getting graphic, you can't be in the bathroom or in the shower or anything else that leaves you in a state of undress in bed or sleeping without clothes next to you if you have a bomb shelter that's a public bomb shelter. All of these things are are stresses that we're dealing with on a daily basis. And for me, and it sounds strange, I'd rather be home dealing with those stresses in the midst of a war than sitting in a hotel in Atlanta.
Well, I've been praying for you every night, and Nancy sends her love, by the way. But if you need us, we're here for you, my friend. And
by the way, here we go, Jake. As we're speaking now, there are sirens, and without even looking and opening my phone, I know that the sirens are for missiles or rockets or drones. Yep, in the northern Israel, Mizgavam, Metula, Matzila, Mikmoret. Yep, these are all northern Israeli communities that are now under bombardment from Hezbollah.
Unbelievable. Jonathan, if you need anything, please let me know. I'll be in touch with you perhaps later today if you have time. And we will stay in contact.
Sounds great, Jake. God bless you. Thank you to all your listeners for praying and caring.
God bless you, too. And God bless you and Marzi for your work. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Jonathan.